Imagine you wake up in 1974. Tension vibrates in the air like a drum rumbling before the storm. A disputed territory is on the verge of exploding. A single misstep could unleash chaos. And then, a brutal murder shatters the silence. A death that doesn't just light the fuse, but ignites a savage war. An epic clash that will rage for 4 years and sweep away everything in its path, leaving a graveyard where life once thrived. But hold on, don't pull out your history books just yet. This isn't a war of tanks, bombs, or firearms. There are no flags or borders drawn on a map. This is a primal, visceral war, fought with fangs, claws, and a blood-chilling fury. The combatants? Not humans, but chimpanzees. Yes, you heard that right. Chimpanzees in the heart of Gombe National Park, Tanzania. It all started as one big family, a tight-knit community of furry apes going about their daily lives. But in 1973, the dream fractured. A rebellious faction from the south, the Kahama, said enough is enough and broke away, staking their claim to land and power. Their reward? A relentless massacre. The Kasakela, the dominant clan, showed no mercy. They hunted the rebels down one by one, wiping out every male with chilling precision until the territory was theirs. Not a whisper of the Kahama remained. Jane Goodall, the legendary scientist studying them, was left speechless. She, who had seen them as noble and peaceful creatures, had to face a brutal truth. Our little paradise turned into a hell. I discovered that chimpanzees could be as ruthless as we are. What she witnessed wasn't just violence, it was carnage straight out of a nightmare. Chimpanzees with blood-soaked mouths, tearing apart bodies, splintering bones, a dying mother lying in the grass, her young daughter beside her swatting flies in a futile gesture as life slipped away. This wasn't some petty monkey brawl, this was the Gombe Chimpanzee War, a conflict that shattered everything we thought we knew about these animals. We once believed war was our invention, a badge exclusive to humanity. But here were our evolutionary cousins, plotting ambushes, weaving strategies, and fighting for power with an ambition that would make any politician blush. And now, brace yourself, because here comes the question that will keep you up at night. If chimpanzees, those furry relatives with whom we share 98% of our DNA, are capable of this, what does that say about us? Is war just a human creation, or an instinct etched deep into our very essence? Are we really so different from them? Or are we just chimpanzees in fancy clothes and with more sophisticated weapons, playing the same game of blood and dominance? Are you enjoying what you're watching? If so, consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps me keep creating content like this for you. It costs you nothing, and it motivates me a lot to keep making more videos. So if you want to support the channel, go ahead and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Get ready, because this story won't just shock you, it'll make you look in the mirror in a whole new way. To begin, imagine a world where every living being, from the tiniest cell to the most imposing animal, was frozen in time, created just as we see it, with no possibility of change or evolution. That's how people thought before the 19th century. Life was fixed, eternal, unchanging. But then, two revolutionary geniuses, Alfred Russel Wallace and Charles Darwin, shook that belief to its core. Exploring the jungles of the Malay archipelago and sailing aboard the HMS Beagle, they uncovered an astonishing truth. Life isn't static, it evolves. Species transform over time, sculpted by a powerful, invisible force called natural selection. And here's the most shocking part. Humans are no exception. We are intimately tied to the animal kingdom, sharing a common past with our ape cousins. In 1871, Darwin dropped an explosive idea in his book, The Descent of Man. Humans evolved from an ape-like ancestor and share physical traits and behaviors with them. Think about it. Apes smile, grimace, and shoot piercing glances, using facial expressions to navigate their complex societies just like we do. They have opposable thumbs to grasp objects and can walk on two legs when they choose to. For Darwin, it was clear the difference between man and the higher animals is one of degree, not of kind. In other words, we're apes with a few upgrades. This theory scandalized Victorian society. People called it the devil's gospel, horrified at the idea of being related to monkeys when they believed God had made us in his image. Fast forward to 1924. Raymond Dart, an Australian scientist in South Africa, received a fossilized skull found in a quarry near Tong. This Tong child, an Australopithecus from 2.5 million years ago, had a small brain like a chimpanzee's but human-like teeth and a posture suggesting it walked upright. This discovery shattered the notion that big brains were the first step in our evolution. Instead, it revealed that our path to humanity was slow, clumsy, and deeply ape-like. At first, scientists laughed at DART, but the Tong child proved our origins were humbler than anyone wanted to admit. The Tong child forces us to ask, how far have we really come? Our brains show early signs of speech and tool-making, but they remain anchored in our primate past. Wallace and Darwin lit the spark of this revolution, and the Tong child took it further, showing that the journey from ape to human was long and full of twists. So, how much of that ancient mind still lives within us? Imagine a sunrise in the African jungle, where the first rays of sunlight pierce through the morning mist and filter through the dense emerald canopy. High up among the branches, a tangle of blonde fur and long limbs comes into view. It's a group of Muriqui monkeys, still asleep, wrapped in each other's embrace. Males, females, and young ones rest together in peaceful slumber. These primates, nicknamed hippie monkeys, are unique among their relatives. Not only are they the largest monkeys in the New World, but they also lead extraordinarily cooperative lives. In their society, there are no strict hierarchies. Violence is rare, and resources like food, territory, and even mates are shared equitably. Days begin with hugs, and males patiently wait their turn to mate with receptive females. It's a utopian scene, a striking contrast to the competitive world of many other primates. But here's an intriguing question. Despite their complex social lives, Muriqui monkeys don't have particularly large brains compared to other primates. The same is true for another New World monkey, the capuchin. These primates, with brains smaller than those of apes, exhibit surprisingly human-like behaviors, like using money in experiments, yet they lack the brain size we possess. This brings us to a fundamental question. How did humans come to develop such large and complex brains compared to our primate cousins? What drove this evolutionary leap from monkeys to humans? In the 1980s, American anthropologist Karen Streer became fascinated by the egalitarian society of the Muriquis. She discovered that in their troops, females are equal to males, and grandmothers remain valuable members, caring for the young, much like in human families. Violence within the group is minimal, and there's no fierce competition for mates. Males share females without conflict. In this sense, Muriqui might even be more peaceful and cooperative than humans. Yet they don't have especially large brains, which poses a puzzle. How can they maintain such a complex social life without a more developed brain? In a 2005 study published in Nature, Professor Laurie Santos from Yale University taught capuchins to use silver discs as money to buy food. The monkeys quickly grasped the concept, adjusting their purchases based on price changes, showing economic reasoning similar to humans. Even more surprising, one male capuchin used his money to buy a grape and give it to a female, who then mated with him, suggesting they used currency for social purposes, not just food. Unlike the peaceful Muriquis, capuchins live in troops led by alpha males who control resources and maintain strict hierarchies, often with violence. When two troops meet, clashes involve shouting, stone throwing, and physical fights. Thus, whether in peaceful societies like the Muriquis or hierarchical ones like the capuchins, these monkeys display complex behaviors akin to humans, but without the large brains we have. This leads us to wonder, what made the difference in the evolutionary line of apes, and especially in humans? This is where apes, and eventually humans, stand out. While monkeys like Muriquis and capuchins are intelligent, apes have brains that are not only larger, but also more complex. The neocortex, responsible for higher functions such as sensory perception, motor control, spatial reasoning, and cognition, is especially well developed in apes. In humans, the neocortex accounts for about 76% of the brain's total volume. Additionally, the prefrontal cortex, associated with planning, decision-making, and complex social behavior, is disproportionately large in apes, giving us an edge in advanced tasks. But size isn't everything. Consider the theory of mind, the ability to understand the thoughts and intentions of others. In a fascinating experiment, researchers from Germany and Scotland tested whether chimpanzees, bonobos, and orangutans could grasp what a human knows or doesn't know. The apes watched as a person, let's call them Alex, hid an object in one of two boxes. Then Alex left the room and another person, let's call them Pedro, moved the object to the other box. When Alex returned and searched for the object in the original box, the apes helped Alex open the correct box, showing they understood Alex's perspective. This was a clear demonstration of theory of mind, a trait once thought to be exclusive to humans. So, how did our brains evolve into the extraordinary organs they are today? What drove apes, and especially humans, to develop such large and complex brains? To answer this, we must go back millions of years. Early primates, like modern lemurs, had small, simple brains with well-developed olfactory regions, as they heavily relied on smell to navigate their environment. Their brains lacked the wrinkled structure that allows for greater neuron density and faster communication between cells. However, about 25 million years ago, something shifted. The first apes, such as proconsuls, appeared in the tropical forests of Africa. These small, tailless, tree-dwelling primates had slightly larger brains and superior grasping abilities, marking the beginning of something special. Over time, the climate changed. Tropical forests receded and savannas began to dominate the landscape. The ape's primary food source, fruit, became scarce and seasonal, demanding better memory and navigation skills. This pressure likely spurred brain growth. By the time Australopithecus emerged, with a brain nearly 3 times larger than that of earlier apes, the trend was clear. Bigger brains were essential for survival. Then came a revolutionary shift: bipedalism. Fossils like Sahelanthropus from 7 million years ago show a foramen magnum, the hole where the spinal cord connects to the brain, positioned under the skull, as in humans. This suggests Sahelanthropus walked on 2 legs, freeing its hands to use tools. With tools came access to calorie-rich foods like meat and bone marrow, further fueling brain expansion. By the time Homo sapiens appeared, our brains had reached an average of 1,400 cubic centimeters, nearly 4 times larger than those of chimpanzees, which averaged 360 cubic centimeters. Our journey from ape to human is a story of evolutionary innovation, driven by environmental changes and complex social dynamics. When we look at a chimpanzee or an orangutan, we see echoes of our past, creatures shaped by the same ancient pressures. But in the 6 million years since we diverged from the ancestors of chimpanzees, we've taken a unique path. Our brains have grown not just in size, but in capacity, enabling language, abstract thought, and advanced problem solving. Yet a question remains: how much of our ape heritage still lingers within us? What have we lost, and what have we gained? As we marvel at our cognitive achievements, it's worth remembering that the seeds of our brilliance were planted long ago in the treetops of an ancient world. Picture this scene. You're in the vast African savanna, stumbling along on your 2 legs when suddenly a chimpanzee bursts onto the stage like the king of the jungle. He moves agilely through the branches above your head, one long-fingered hand gripping a branch for balance while the other holds a sharpened wooden spear. Behind him, a small band of accomplices follows in deadly silence, charged with anticipation. You watch, mouth agape, mesmerized. There's something about this hunter that stirs a strange connection in you, almost like a distant cousin. You know it's wise to keep your distance, but you can't shake the feeling that this guy is a wild reflection of yourself, separated, of course, by a mere 8 million years of evolution. Suddenly, the hunter freezes, still as a statue beside the tree trunk, poised to strike. And then, bam! He plunges his spear into a tiny hollow you hadn't even noticed. The precision and force of the blow leave you breathless. Your gasp of awe goes unheard because, within seconds, he pulls out a furry, bloodied mass. The jungle erupts in chaos. His companions let out shrill screeches of excitement, while friends and family watching from below join the uproar with shouts and howls. In their world, a successful hunt is a celebration for all, because everyone might get a piece of the prize. With the limp prey in hand, the hunter descends to the ground, closely followed by his gang, already clamoring for their share. But inside him, an epic battle rages. His instincts roar to defend his trophy with tooth and claw. It's his victory, his alone. While his mind tells him these are his allies, recalling times they've shared with him before. If he doesn't return the favor, they'll give him the cold shoulder and certainly won't share with him next time. In the end, reason wins this internal fight. He divvies up portions of meat among his crew and even sets aside some chunks for the group's big shots. For these chimpanzees, sharing food especially something as valuable as meat, isn't about kindness or charity, it's pure politics. Now, let's travel to Fongoli in southeastern Senegal, where anthropologist Jill Pretz and her team observed this scene in 2007. In this savanna woodland landscape with temperatures soaring to 40 degrees Celsius and a 7-month dry season, survival is a brutal challenge. But this place, with its mix of grasslands and groves, resembles the environments where our hominid ancestors evolved. That's why Pruitts became obsessed with the Fongoli chimpanzees. Not only do they live like our ancestors, but they're tool-using masters. They wield heavy hammers to crack tough nuts, modified sticks to extract termites from mounds, and even toothpicks to clean their teeth. What makes them truly unique, though, is that they're among the few non-human primates that regularly hunt with tools. Science has revealed that chimpanzees and bonobos are our closest evolutionary relatives, so it's not crazy to think we share some tricks with them. Thanks to pioneers like Jane Goodall, who studied the Kasakela chimpanzees in the 1960s, we know these furry cousins are far more than ordinary monkeys. Goodall got to know them so well, she even gave them names, proving they don't just make and use tools, but lead social lives as vibrant and complex as the most outgoing humans. They form loyal friendships, political alliances, and tight family bonds. They spend hours grooming, caring for the vulnerable, and communicating with gestures and sounds we're only beginning to decipher. But it's not all peace and love. Goodall also witnessed a darker side, the 4-year war between the Kasakela and Kahama communities, 1974 to 1978. She saw a lone male, Godi, brutally attacked by 6 Kasakela males until he lay motionless. Another, Old Goliath, endured a savage assault where they tried to tear off his leg. In the end, the Kahama community was annihilated, and the victorious Kasakela claimed their territory, only to be driven out later by another group. Years later in Uganda, studies in Ngogo and Kabale parks revealed a web of primitive politics and territorial struggles, with males attacking neighbors to gain resources and mates. And then there are the bonobos, a completely different story. Unlike the male-dominated chimpanzees, females rule their world. They form strong alliances with hugs and grooming, dominating the males and keeping the peace. They're famous for using sex not just to reproduce, but to resolve conflicts, relax, greet each other, and, yes, just for fun. They're also empathetic. They console, share food, and cooperate. In an experiment at the Lola Ya Bonobo Sanctuary in Congo, some bonobos dropped apples to strangers below without expecting anything in return, showcasing their generous nature. So, by studying these primate cousins, we hold up a mirror to ourselves. We see our own nature, the good and the bad, and understand how evolution shaped our behaviors. We're not as unique as we thought, are we? About 500 million years ago, life on our planet revolved around a sea teeming with tiny creatures. Among them was a small worm with a big dream: to survive in an increasingly complicated world. This worm belonged to the bilaterians, a group defined by organisms that are symmetrical along a plane dividing their bodies into 2 mirror image halves. Scientists believe that Herbalateria, the hypothetical common ancestor of all these critters, was the pioneer in having the first true brain. What was it like? Nothing impressive to our eyes, just a modest cluster of neurons at one end of its body, like a mini control center to process environmental signals and coordinate movements. Think of it as nature's first GPS. This rudimentary brain was super basic, but it marked a turning point. Why? Because moving with purpose and reacting quickly to what's happening around you requires a boss to make decisions. As animals became more complex, the need for a centralized nervous system grew urgent. And so, the brain race began. But hold on, not all animals hopped on the brain train. Today, creatures like sponges and jellyfish live happily without a centralized brain. How do they manage? With simple nerve networks that handle all the basics without needing a boss. It's like running on autopilot, efficient, but not very creative. Meanwhile, most animals, from tiny insects to giants like whales and elephants, rely on their brains to survive and thrive in this wild world. Let's fast forward through time. That first worm brain was just the beginning. Over millions of years of evolution, brains grew bigger, more wrinkled, and more specialized. Today, we see complex structures with areas dedicated to specific tasks like thinking, remembering, or feeling. But not all brains are the same, and that's what's fascinating. Dolphins, for instance, are masters of intelligence. Their brains are larger than ours, and their cerebral cortices are as wrinkled as an accordion, signaling next-level cognitive abilities. Did you know they use sea sponges as gloves to protect their snouts while foraging on the ocean floor? That's tool use like a pro. Plus, they have distinctive whistles like personal names and are so smart they recognize themselves in mirrors. And let's not forget their superpower, echolocation. With clicks and echoes, they build sonic maps of their world, spotting a fish 50 meters away as if they had X-ray vision. Their brains boast a massive auditory area, perfectly tuned for this underwater soundscape. Then there are humpback whales, with songs so complex they sound like marine operas. These melodies change yearly and spread between populations, like they've got their own hit radio station. This is cultural transmission, something we once thought only humans and some apes could do. Their enormous brains are wired to process these aquatic concerts, proving intelligence wears many faces. In the African plains, elephants stun us with their gigantic brains, the largest among land animals. Their superpower? An incredible memory. They remember friends and family after years apart, even recalling events from their childhood. But that's not all. They show empathy, comforting the distressed and mourning their dead, touching their bones in what seems like a ritual. Practical intelligence? They've got that too. They use branches as fly swatters or carry rocks to disable electric fences. Their brains, packed with cortical neurons, manage their intricate social lives and that versatile trunk that's like an extra hand. Surviving in a complex world pushed animals to develop more advanced nervous systems. Environmental challenges were like brain gyms, and while primates like us often take credit for being the smartest, intelligence is everywhere. So remember, you carry a 500 million year legacy inside you, from a humble worm to the genius you are today.